My name is Esther. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. And on the day this story begins, my whole life cracked open in a way I never imagined. I was standing in my kitchen, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold, when I heard my own name spoken in a voice that did not know I was listening. It was a whisper. Low. Careful. Afraid. Esther must never find out, my daughter-in-law said. My heart skipped. Another voice answered her. Not my son's voice. Someone else. If she finds out, the person said, everything is ruined. My fingers tightened around the cup. Find out what? Why would everything be ruined if I knew? I did not mean to listen. I swear I didn't. But my legs would not move. My body stayed right there in the hallway, breathing slow, ears wide open. Then she said something that made my knees weak. The papers are already signed. She can't stop it now. I felt dizzy. Papers. Signed. Stop what? At that exact moment, my phone buzzed in my hand. Loud. Sharp. Too loud. The whispering stopped. Footsteps moved. The door handle turned. And just before the door opened, a terrible thought hit me like a stone to the chest. They were talking about me. The door opened, and my daughter-in-law stood there, staring straight at my face. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. Were you listening? She asked. My mouth went dry. My heart was beating so hard I thought she could hear it. I was just passing by, I said. She looked at me for a long second. Then she smiled. That smile had never scared me before. This time, it did. Good, she said softly. Because there's nothing you need to worry about. She closed the door again. I stood there, shaking. That night, I could not sleep. But to understand why this hurt so deeply, you need to know how everything started. My son married her 3 years ago. On that day, I hugged her and told her she was my daughter now. I meant it with my whole heart. At first, she was polite. She cooked sometimes. She smiled when people were watching. But when we were alone, she was quiet. Always watching me. Always careful with her words. After my husband died, my son asked me to move in with them. He said he didn't want me to be alone. He said it was safer. I believed him. I trusted him. Slowly, things changed. My mail stopped coming to my room. My phone bills were suddenly handled for me. Important letters disappeared before I could read them. Whenever I asked questions, she answered fast. Don't stress yourself. We are helping you. You should rest more. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were hard. One afternoon, I saw a folder on the dining table. My name was written on it. Big letters. Clear letters. Before I could touch it, she rushed in and pulled it away. Oh, that's nothing, she said quickly. Just old documents. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Why would old documents make her nervous? A few days later, I went to the bank. I wanted to withdraw some of my savings. Money I had worked for my whole life. The woman at the counter frowned. I'm sorry, ma'am, she said. There are restrictions on this account. I laughed at first. That's not possible. She looked at her screen again. You'll need approval from the second account holder. Second account holder. I walked out of that bank feeling smaller than I had ever felt. When I got home, I asked my daughter-in-law. She did not shout. She did not panic. She smiled. It's for your safety, she said. You forget things sometimes. I wanted to scream. I may be old, but I am not stupid. From that day, I started watching quietly. Phone calls taken outside. Whispers late at night. Drawers locked that were never locked before. And my son? He avoided my eyes. He spoke less. He looked tired. Guilty. Then came the night in the hallway. The whispers. The papers. The words. She can't stop it now. That night, after everyone went to bed, I got up slowly. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. I walked to the room they told me never to enter. I opened the drawer they always kept locked. And what I saw inside made one thing very clear to me. They thought I was weak. They thought I would stay silent. They thought I would never act. They were wrong. And what I did next would leave every single one of them speechless. I did not touch anything at first. I just stood there, staring into the open drawer, my heart beating so hard it felt like it would tear my chest open. Inside were papers neatly arranged. Too neat. Too planned. My name was written on many of them. Some had stamps. Some had signatures. Some had dates that went back months. Months. This had not started yesterday. This had not started last week. This had been happening quietly, slowly, right under my roof. My hands shook as I picked up the first document. It was about my house. The house my late husband and I bought together. The house where I raised my children. The house filled with my memories. According to the paper, ownership was being adjusted. Adjusted. I read the word again and again. Adjusted to who? I flipped the page. My daughter-in-law's name was there. My son's name was there. And mine was barely present. I felt my legs give way, and I sat on the edge of the bed to keep from falling. They were taking my life piece by piece. And they never planned to tell me. I heard a sound in the hallway and quickly put the papers back exactly how I found them. I closed the drawer and stepped away just as footsteps passed the door. I waited until everything was quiet again before returning to my room. That night, I did not sleep. I lay there, staring into the darkness, replaying every smile, every kind word, every moment I had trusted them. It all felt like a lie now. The next morning, I watched them closely. My daughter-in-law hummed while making breakfast. She moved calmly, like nothing in the world was wrong. My son barely spoke. He ate quickly and left early. When our eyes met, he looked away. That hurt more than anything. I wanted to shout. I wanted to throw the truth on the table and demand answers. But something inside me said, wait. If they could plan something this big in silence, then I needed to be smarter than my anger. So I stayed quiet. Days passed. I acted the way they expected me to act. I smiled. I thanked her for meals. I asked for help with small things. And the more helpless I appeared, the more relaxed she became. One afternoon she sat beside me and said, "You've been forgetting things lately. Maybe we should talk to a doctor." I looked at her and nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right," I said. Inside, my heart was burning. That same day, I overheard another phone call. This time, I caught a name I did not recognize. "Yes," she said quietly. "She hasn't noticed anything. Everything is going as planned." Planned. That word again. I waited until she left the house. Then I went straight to my room and locked the door. I called an old friend. Someone my daughter-in-law did not know. Someone who had helped me before. I told her everything. She listened in silence, then said something that made my chest tighten. "Esther, you need copies. And you need proof." That night, when the house was asleep again, I went back to that drawer. This time, I did not just look. I photographed everything. Every paper. Every signature. Every date. I worked slowly, carefully, my hands steady now. Fear had turned into focus. When I finished, I put everything back exactly as it was and returned to my room. I hid my phone under my pillow and whispered to myself, "They don't know who they're dealing with." The next morning, my daughter-in-law did something unexpected. She sat me down. "Mama," she said softly, "we need to talk about your future." I looked at her calmly. "What about it?" I asked. She folded her hands like someone about to deliver bad news. "You're getting older. Things are getting harder for you. We think it's time to make some decisions. For your own good." I nodded again. "What kind of decisions?" I asked. She smiled. The kind you don't need to worry about. That was when I knew. She thought she had already won. But she had no idea that I was already several steps ahead. That afternoon, I did something I had not done in years. I left the house without telling anyone. And where I went, and who I spoke to, would change the balance of power forever. When I returned home that evening, my daughter-in-law looked at me strangely. "Where did you go?" she asked. I smiled back at her. "Just handling something important," I said. Her eyes narrowed. And in that moment, I could tell she felt it too. Something had shifted. Something she could not control anymore. But she still believed she had the upper hand. She was wrong. When I closed my bedroom door that night, I leaned my back against it and let out a breath I did not know I had been holding all day. My heart was still racing from the lie I had told so easily. Just handling something important. She believed me. Or at least, she pretended to. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house. The quiet footsteps. The low voices. The television turning off. They thought I was done for the night. They were wrong. Inside my handbag, hidden under an old scarf, were copies of everything. Pictures of documents. Names. Dates. Signatures. Proof. The next morning, I woke up earlier than everyone else. I wanted my face to look calm, tired, normal. At breakfast, my daughter-in-law watched me closely as she poured tea. "You didn't sleep well," she said. I nodded. "Old bones." She smiled, satisfied. After my son left for work, she sat across from me at the table. "We need to talk about something serious," she said. I kept my eyes on my cup. "I've already spoken to someone," she continued. "A professional. About what's best for you." My fingers tightened around the cup. "What kind of professional?" I asked. "A care advisor," she said quickly. "Someone who helps families make difficult decisions." Difficult decisions. The words made my stomach turn. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "You trust us, don't you?" she asked softly. I looked up at her. For a moment, I almost said yes. Instead, I pulled my hand away slowly. "I trust God," I said. Her smile twitched. That same afternoon, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered quietly. "Is this Esther?" a man asked. "Yes. This is regarding your living arrangements," he said. "We have been informed that you may need alternative care soon." My chest tightened. "Informed by who?" I asked. There was a pause. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that," he said. I thanked him and hung up. So she had already started. She was moving pieces without me even being in the room. That evening, I sat alone in my bedroom and made another call. This time, I called someone who knew the law. Someone who did not smile politely when things were wrong. He listened as I spoke, stopping me only to ask clear questions. "Did you sign these papers yourself?" he asked. "No." "Were you aware of any changes to your property or accounts?" "No." He was silent for a moment. "Then someone has crossed a line," he said. Those words gave me strength. For the first time since my husband died, I felt like I was standing on solid ground again. The next few days were tense. My daughter-in-law started watching me more closely. She began locking doors. She took her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. One evening, she confronted me. "You've been acting strange," she said. "You're not yourself." I met her eyes calmly. "Maybe I'm just tired of being quiet," I said. Her face hardened. "You should be careful," she warned. "You don't want to make things difficult for everyone." That was not concern. That was a threat. Later that night, I heard my son arguing with her in whispers. "She's your mother," he said. "She's a problem," she replied. That word cut deeper than any knife. I pressed my hand against my mouth so I would not cry out. The next morning, my son knocked on my door. "Mama," he said softly, "are you okay?" I studied his face. He looked broken, trapped. "I will be," I said. "But only if the truth comes out." He looked confused. "What truth?" Before I could answer, she called his name from the kitchen. He hesitated, then walked away. That day, I made a decision. If they were going to push me into silence, I would make noise. I started asking questions. Loud questions. At the bank. At the housing office. At places she did not expect me to show up. Each time, I watched panic flicker in her eyes when she realized people were calling me instead of her. One afternoon, I came home to find her standing in my room. She was holding my handbag. "What are you looking for?" I asked calmly. She turned, her face tight. "You've been hiding things from me," she said. I smiled. "So have you." Her hand tightened around the bag. "This doesn't end well for you," she said. I took a step closer. "It already won't end the way you planned," I replied. Her eyes burned with anger. And in that moment, I knew something was about to explode. Because when people who believe they are in control start losing power, they do not back away quietly. They strike. And the strike was coming sooner than I expected. The day everything changed started like any other. The sun came up. Birds made noise outside the window. The house smelled like toast and tea. But inside me, something was already breaking loose. I woke up with a strange calm in my chest. The kind of calm that comes when fear has finished its job and courage takes over. I knew they were going to make a move. People like my daughter-in-law do not like to lose control. When they feel it slipping, they act fast. Sometimes too fast. At breakfast, she barely spoke to me. She did not offer me tea. She did not ask if I slept well. She kept checking her phone. My son sat quietly, his shoulders slumped, his eyes tired. I watched them both and said nothing. After breakfast, she announced, "We have an appointment today." My heart skipped. Appointment for what? She smiled without warmth. "For you." My son looked up. "What appointment?" She cut him off quickly. "I already explained it to you." She turned to me again. "Get dressed. We're leaving in 30 minutes. She did not ask. She told. I went to my room slowly. I closed the door and leaned against it. So this was it. I opened my wardrobe and took out my best dress. The one I wore to church on special days. If this was going to be a fight, I would not go in looking small. As I dressed, my phone vibrated. A message. "Do not sign anything. I am on my way." I read it twice. My hands were steady as I put the phone back in my bag. When I came out of the room, my daughter-in-law looked surprised. "You look very serious," she said. "I am," I replied. The drive was quiet. Too quiet. She kept glancing at me through the mirror. My son stared out the window. We arrived at a large building with glass doors. Clean. Cold. Official. My stomach tightened. Inside, a woman greeted us with a professional smile. "Mrs. Esther, please come with me." I did not move. "I would like to know what this meeting is about," I said. My daughter-in-law answered quickly. "Just a routine discussion." The woman looked confused. "Actually, this is about your long-term care and financial oversight." Oversight. I turned to my son. "Did you know about this?" His face went pale. She said it was just information." I took a deep breath and followed them into the room. The walls were white. The table was wide. Papers were already laid out. Too many papers. The woman began speaking in a soft voice, explaining things I never agreed to. Words like capacity, assistance, transfer of responsibility. My daughter-in-law nodded along. "This is what we discussed," she said. She gets confused sometimes. I felt heat rush to my face. I am not confused, I said firmly. The woman paused. Mrs. Esther, these documents show prior consent. I laughed. A sharp, tired laugh. Then show me my signature, I said. The room went quiet. The woman flipped through the pages, frowning. My daughter-in-law shifted in her seat. That won't be necessary, she said. It is very necessary, I replied. At that moment, the door opened. A man walked in. Confident. I'm sorry I'm late, he said. I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Esther. My daughter-in-law stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. What is this? She demanded. I smiled for the first time that day. This, I said, is me no longer being silent. The man introduced himself and began asking questions. Real questions. Sharp questions. He asked who requested the meeting. Who signed the papers? Who claimed I was unfit to decide for myself? My daughter-in-law's answers became shorter, her voice tighter. Then the man placed the copies I had taken on the table. These, he said, are unauthorized documents. The woman's face changed completely. This meeting cannot continue under these circumstances, she said. My daughter-in-law looked around the room, her plan collapsing in real time. My son stared at her, shocked. You said Mama agreed, he whispered. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had no words. We walked out of that building in silence. In the car, my son finally spoke. What have you done? He asked her. I answered instead. I protected myself. She turned toward me, her eyes blazing. This isn't over, she said. I met her stare. It never was, I replied. That night, the house felt different. Heavy. Dangerous. She did not speak to me. She slammed doors. She whispered on the phone again. And deep inside, I knew this failed move would not stop her. It would push her to something worse. Because now, she was desperate. And desperate people do reckless things. I went to bed with my phone under my pillow, fully dressed. Ready. Because the next blow was coming. And it would come from inside the house. I did not sleep that night. Every sound in the house felt louder than it should have been. A door creaking. A spoon touching the sink. Footsteps moving when everyone was supposed to be in bed. I kept my eyes open in the dark, listening, waiting. Something had changed after we returned from that building. I could feel it in the air. The house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a place where lines had been crossed and could never be uncrossed. Around midnight, I heard her voice again. Low. Angry. Rushed. She was on the phone. I moved slowly and stood near my door, careful not to make a sound. I told you it failed, she whispered. He showed up with someone. There was a pause. No, she knows now, she continued. But that doesn't mean we're done. My heart thumped hard. Done with what? I heard footsteps moving closer and quickly returned to my bed. I lay still, pretending to sleep. The door to my room opened quietly. I felt the air change. Someone stood there. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow, my body still. After a few seconds, the door closed again. I waited until morning before I let myself breathe normally. At breakfast, she acted as if nothing had happened. She made tea. She set the table. She even smiled at me. That smile scared me more than her anger. Eat well today, she said. You've been through a lot. My son watched her carefully now. Something in his eyes had changed too. He was finally seeing her clearly. After he left for work, she sat across from me. You embarrassed me yesterday, she said calmly. I told the truth, I replied. She leaned forward. You're making life difficult for everyone. I met her eyes. You made it difficult the moment you lied. Her jaw tightened. You think one meeting changes anything, she asked. You live here because we allow it. Those words landed heavy. I stood up slowly. This is my son's house. And I am his mother. She laughed softly. Not for long. That afternoon, something strange happened. A man came to the house. He said he was there to check on things. He asked me questions. Personal questions. How often I forget things. Whether I cook for myself. If I remember to take my medication. I answered calmly. My daughter-in-law sat nearby, nodding along, adding small comments. She gets confused sometimes, she said. When the man left, I went straight to my room and locked the door. That was when I found it. My handbag was open. My phone was gone. I felt my knees weaken. That phone held everything. Photos. Messages. Proof. I rushed to the kitchen. Where is my phone? I asked. She looked up slowly. What phone? The one in my bag. She shrugged. Maybe you misplaced it. I stared at her. I did not. She smiled again. That same dangerous smile. Are you sure? She asked softly. Something inside me snapped. I went to my son's room and called him at work from the house phone. She took my phone, I said. What? He asked. Come home, I said. Now. When he arrived, I told him everything. The whispers. The papers. The meeting. The phone. He confronted her. She denied it at first. Then she cried. Then she got angry. Finally, she pulled the phone out of her pocket and threw it on the table. I was trying to help, she shouted. My son stared at her like he had never seen her before. That phone does not belong to you, he said. She laughed bitterly. Everything in this house belongs to me. That was when my son said something that shocked us both. This is my mother, he said. And if you can treat her like this, I don't know who you are. She went quiet. Too quiet. She walked out of the room and slammed the bedroom door. That night, my son slept on the couch. I sat alone in my room, holding my phone tightly. The proof was still there. But I knew something now. She was no longer pretending. And when masks fall, people either surrender, or they become dangerous. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, knowing deep in my heart that the next move she made would be her most desperate one yet. And desperate moves can destroy families forever. The morning after my son slept on the couch, the house felt like it was holding its breath. No one spoke. No one smiled. Even the walls seemed tense. I woke up early and sat on my bed, holding my phone in both hands. I checked everything again. The photos were still there. The messages were still there. The proof was safe. But I knew something very clearly now. My daughter-in-law would not stop. People like her do not stop when they are caught. They stop only when they win, or when they are exposed so badly they have nowhere left to stand. I stepped out of my room and walked into the living room. My son was still on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Mama, he said quietly when he saw me. I'm sorry. I sat beside him. You don't need to apologize for loving your wife, I said. But you do need to see the truth. He swallowed hard. I think I'm starting to. At that moment, the bedroom door opened. She walked out dressed neatly, makeup perfect, face calm. Too calm. She did not look at my son. She did not look at me. She went straight to the kitchen and began packing a bag. I'm going out, she said flatly. My son stood up. We need to talk. She zipped the bag shut. There's nothing to talk about. She walked past us and out the door. The silence she left behind was loud. Hours passed. She did not return. Around noon, my son's phone rang. He answered, listened, and then sat down slowly. What is it? I asked. He looked at me with wide eyes. She called my aunt, he said. She told her you are sick. That you're confused. That you need to be taken away from the house. My chest tightened. She's lying, I said. I know, he replied. But she's telling everyone. By evening, the calls started. Relatives, friends, even people I had not spoken to in years. They all asked the same questions. Are you okay? Do you remember me? Are you safe? She was painting a picture of me that was not true. A picture of a weak old woman who could not think for herself. That night, she came back. She walked in like nothing had happened and placed a bag down. We need to make some arrangements, she said calmly. My son stood up. You lied about my mother. She crossed her arms. I told them the truth as I see it. I took a step forward. The truth? I asked. Or your version of it? She looked at me coldly. You should be grateful, she said. I'm trying to protect this family. No, I said. You're trying to control it. Her face twisted with anger. You think people will believe you? She snapped. Look at you. Old. Alone. Confused. My son shouted her name. Stop, he said. Just stop. She laughed bitterly. You'll choose her over me? She asked him. He hesitated. That hesitation broke something inside me. I raised my hand gently. Don't, I said. Do not choose. Just listen. I took out my phone. Her eyes widened. I showed him the photos. The papers. The signatures. I played one of the voice messages she did not know I had recorded. The room went quiet. Very quiet. My son's hands shook as he held the phone. You did all this, he whispered to her. She said nothing. Her silence was louder than any shout. Finally, she spoke. I did it for us, she said. For our future. You tried to erase my mother, he replied. She looked at him, then at me. You think this ends here, she said softly. You have no idea how far this can go. Then she walked into the bedroom and locked the door. That night, I heard her crying. Crying turned into phone calls. Phone calls turned into whispers. And whispers turned into something else. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Not a friendly knock. A firm one. Official. My son opened it. Two people stood outside. They said they were there to take me somewhere safe. My heart dropped. I looked at my daughter-in-law standing behind them, her face calm again, confident, victorious. She had made her move. And this time she came prepared. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Two strangers stood at the door. One man. One woman. Both dressed neatly. Both holding files. They looked at me with the same look people give fragile things. Careful. Distant. Decided. We're here to help, the woman said softly. Help. That word again. My daughter-in-law stepped forward, placing a hand on my son's arm. It's okay, she said gently. This is what's best. My son looked from her to me. His face was pale. Confused. Torn. What is this? He asked. The man cleared his throat. We received reports that your mother may not be safe living independently. Independently. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was cruel. I live in my son's house, I said clearly. And I am very aware of where I am. The woman smiled politely. We just need to ask you a few questions. They stepped inside. I did not move. My daughter-in-law's eyes followed me closely, watching for weakness. I gave her none. They asked simple questions at first. My name. The date. Where I was. I answered all of them without hesitation. Then the questions changed. Do you forget things often? Do you feel confused at night? Do you feel afraid here? I looked straight at my daughter-in-law. I feel unsafe because someone in this house is lying about me, I said. The man raised his head. Who is that? She is, I said, pointing calmly. My daughter-in-law gasped. See? This is what I mean. She's confused and angry. My son stepped forward. No. She's not confused. She's telling the truth. The woman holding the file frowned. Sir, are you sure? Yes, he said firmly. And I have proof. He reached for his phone. My daughter-in-law's face changed instantly. You don't need to do this, she said quickly. You're making this worse. I should have done this sooner, he replied. He showed them everything. The photos, the documents, the messages, the recordings. The room went quiet. Very quiet. The man and woman exchanged looks. These documents, the man said slowly, were they signed willingly? I shook my head. I never signed anything. My daughter-in-law opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The woman closed her file. This changes things, she said. My daughter-in-law's voice rose. You said this would be enough. Enough. So she had planned everything. The man looked at her sharply. Ma'am, you did not tell us about disputed documents. She took a step back. I was trying to protect my family. The woman's voice became firm. Making false reports is serious. My daughter-in-law's confidence cracked. My son turned to her, his voice shaking. You tried to take my mother away. She looked at him, eyes filled with tears now. I did it because you wouldn't, she said. You're too weak to make hard choices. He stared at her like she was a stranger. The two visitors stood up. We will not be taking anyone today, the woman said. In fact, we will be filing a report of our own. My daughter-in-law's face went white. As they left, she collapsed onto the chair. This isn't fair, she whispered. I stood in front of her. You plan to erase me, I said quietly. You almost succeeded. She looked up at me, fear finally replacing arrogance. That night, my son packed a bag. Not mine. Hers. You need space, he told her. I need to think. She cried. She begged. She promised. But the damage was done. She left the house just before midnight. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt final. I sat alone in my room, shaking, exhausted, but still standing. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Because people who lose control once do not always walk away. Sometimes, they come back louder, stronger, more dangerous. And she still had one secret left. One that could destroy everything. I would find out soon. Very soon. The house was quiet after she left. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring and your thoughts grow loud. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the door she had slammed behind her hours earlier. My body felt weak, but my mind refused to rest. Something was not finished. People like my daughter-in-law do not walk away defeated. They retreat. They plan. They wait for the right moment to strike again. My son knocked softly on my door. Mama, he said. Can I come in? I nodded. He sat beside me, his shoulders heavy, his eyes red. I didn't know, he said quietly. I swear, I didn't know she could do something like this. I believe you, I replied. But belief alone cannot fix what has been broken. He lowered his head. She called me again. My heart tightened. What did she say? She said she forgot something important here, he answered. She wants to come back tomorrow to get it. I felt a chill move through me. What did you say? I told her I'd think about it, he said. I didn't want another fight tonight. I reached for his hand. Listen to me carefully. Whatever she left here, it is not small. The next morning, I woke early again. Habit now. Survival. I walked through the house slowly, noticing things I had ignored for years. Drawers. Cabinets. Shelves. Spaces she used often. That was when I noticed it. A small metal box hidden behind old blankets in the storage room. I froze. I had never seen it before. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. It was locked. I stared at it for a long time, my heart beating fast. This was it. This was the thing she wanted back. I did not open it right away. Instead, I waited. Late in the afternoon, my son came home from work. "She's coming by this evening," he said. "Just to pick up her things." I nodded calmly. "Good." He looked at me strangely. "Good." "Yes," I said. "Let her come." When she arrived, she looked different. No confidence. No sharp smile. Her eyes were tired. Her voice softer. "I just need to get my box," she said. My son frowned. "What box?" She hesitated. "The one in the storage room," she said quickly. "It's personal." I stepped forward. "What's inside it?" I asked. She looked at me, then looked away. "Nothing that concerns you," she replied. That was answer enough. I picked up the box and held it between us. "This box was hidden," I said. "Locked. And full of secrets, I'm sure." Her breathing became shallow. "Give it to me," she said. "Please." My son stepped closer. "Open it." She shook her head violently. "No." "Then tell us what's inside," I said. Tears filled her eyes. "It will ruin everything," she whispered. My son's voice was firm. "Then it should have been ruined a long time ago." I handed the box to him. He found the spare key taped under the lid. When he opened it, the room seemed to stop breathing. Inside were documents. More documents. Different from the others. Life insurance papers. Loan agreements. Letters from lawyers. And one envelope with my name written on it. My son pulled it out and read. His face drained of color. "She planned for you to be declared unfit," he said slowly. "So everything would legally transfer to us." Us. I took the envelope from his hands and opened it. Inside was a letter. Cold. Clear. Planned. It explained everything. How she intended to control the money. How she would move me into a facility. How no one would question it if it happened slowly. I felt sick. My daughter-in-law fell to her knees. "I was scared," she cried. "I didn't want to lose control." "You tried to erase me," I said. She looked up at me, her face broken. "I didn't think you would fight back." That was the truth. She never thought I would fight. My son stood up, his voice shaking with anger and pain. "You don't live here anymore," he said. "And you will not contact my mother again." She reached for him. "Please." He stepped back. She left without another word. That night, I burned copies of those papers in the sink, one by one. Not out of fear. Out of closure. But even as the ashes turned cold, I knew something. The truth was now fully exposed. And with truth comes consequences. The final storm was coming. Not from her. But from everything she had already set in motion. And I would have to face it all in the open. The days after she left felt unreal. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just heavy. Like the house itself was trying to understand what had happened inside its walls. My son barely spoke. He moved slowly, as if every step carried weight. Sometimes I caught him staring at the floor, replaying moments in his head, moments where he wished he had seen the truth sooner. I did not blame him. Love can blind even the strongest eyes. But the world does not stop turning just because secrets are exposed. The storm she started did not end when she walked out. It had only changed direction. 3 days later, the first letter arrived. Official. Thick. Heavy. My son brought it to me with shaking hands. "It has your name on it," he said. I opened it carefully. Inside was a notice about my property. A formal inquiry. Questions about ownership. About intent. About mental capacity. She had already planted the seeds. Even though she was gone, her lies were still moving. More letters came after that. From banks. From offices. From places that deal in paper and power. Every letter reminded me of one thing. If I had stayed silent even a little longer, I would have disappeared without anyone noticing. My son took time off work. He sat with me at the table every morning, opening letters, making calls, writing responses. "I should have protected you," he said one afternoon, his voice breaking. "You are protecting me now," I replied. But I could see the guilt eating at him. Relatives began to visit. Some came with concern. Some came with curiosity. Some came with judgment. One aunt shook her head and said, "Family should not fight like this." I looked her in the eye and answered calmly, "Family should not steal from the living." She had no reply. Others asked about my daughter-in-law. Where is she staying now? Will they reconcile? Is this really necessary? Necessary. I had grown tired of that word. One evening, my son received a call that made his face go hard. "She's filing a complaint," he said after hanging up. "A complaint for what?" I asked. "For harassment," he replied quietly. "She claims you're manipulating me." I closed my eyes. So this was her final play. If she could not silence me, she would turn me into the villain. The next week was filled with meetings. Rooms with white walls. People with pens. Questions repeated again and again. They asked me to explain myself. I told them everything. Slowly. Clearly. Calmly. I showed them the documents. The recordings. The letters she wrote with her own hand. I did not cry. I did not shout. I simply spoke the truth. My daughter-in-law did not look at me when we were in the same room. She sat stiffly, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed ahead. When she spoke, her voice shook. "She's confused," she said. "She's always been confused." I turned toward her. "I remember every night you whispered," I said. "I remember every paper you hid. I remember the day you tried to take me away." The room went silent. The people listening looked at her differently now. Not with sympathy. With doubt. After that meeting, my son walked beside me outside. "I didn't recognize her anymore," he said. "Sometimes," I replied, "we don't recognize people until they stop pretending." That night, he made a decision. "I'm filing for separation," he said quietly. I looked at him, surprised. "You don't have to decide anything because of me." "I'm deciding because of me," he answered. "I can't live with someone who tried to erase my mother." The house felt lighter after that. Not healed, but honest. Then came the call that made my heart stop. "Mama," my son said from the doorway, his face pale. "She left something behind." "What?" I asked. "A statement," he said. "One last document." He handed it to me. My hands trembled as I read. It was written carefully, legally, coldly. A final attempt to claim everything. To force one last move. If it succeeded, everything we had fought for would collapse. I looked up at my son slowly. "She's not finished," I said. "No," he replied. "But neither are we." I folded the paper and placed it on the table. For the first time since this began, I felt something stronger than fear. Resolve. Because the next step would not happen behind closed doors. It would happen in the open. Where lies cannot hide. The morning of the final hearing, I woke up before dawn. Not because I was afraid, but because I was ready. For months, people spoke about me in quiet rooms. They signed papers with my name on them. They planned my future without my voice. They decided what I could keep, where I could live, and how I should disappear quietly. Today I would speak for myself. I dressed slowly, carefully. I chose the same dress I wore the day she tried to take me away. Not because it was special, but because it reminded me of who I was when I almost lost everything, and who I became after. My son drove us there. Neither of us spoke much. Some truths do not need words anymore. When we entered the room, she was already there. She did not look at me. She sat straight, hands folded, face blank. The confidence she once carried was gone. What remained was tension and fear. People spoke. Papers were passed. Questions were asked. Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to me. I felt my heart beat once, twice, then steady. I told my story. Not with anger. Not with tears. With truth. I spoke about the whispers. The papers. The lies. The night strangers came to take me away. I showed the documents. The recordings. The letter from the metal box. I explained how it felt to realize someone you welcomed into your family planned your erasing. When I finished, the room was silent. Then they turned to her. She tried to speak. But this time, the words did not work. Her voice cracked. Her stories did not match. Her explanations fell apart under simple questions. One question ended everything. Why did you hide these documents? She had no answer. The decision was clear. Every false claim was dismissed. Every document she tried to use was rejected. Every attempt to control my life was officially stopped. When the final words were spoken, my son reached for my hand. "We won," he whispered. I shook my head gently. "No," I said. "I survived." Outside, the air felt lighter, cleaner, like I could finally breathe again. My son turned to me. "Mama, I should have listened sooner." I looked at him and smiled. "You listened in time." That night, we returned home. Not to fear. Not to whispers. But to peace. Weeks later, life became quiet again. I started cooking for myself. I planted flowers in the yard. I laughed again without checking who was watching. People stopped calling to ask questions. The truth had spoken loud enough. One evening, my son sat beside me and said, "She never thought you would fight." I smiled. That's what they always think about quiet women. I am still a mother. Still a grandmother. But now, I am something else too. I am a woman who did not disappear when she was pushed. And if you are watching this story right now, let me say this clearly. If someone is trying to silence you, control you, or erase you quietly, you are not weak. You are not alone. And it is not too late to speak. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because your voice matters too. Thank you for listening.